Hi, first graders. Today I'm going to read Leola and the Honey Bears, an African American retelling of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Leola has her own little doll. And the bears are a black bear and a brown bear. And I can't tell if Mama Bear's a polar bear with light brown skin yet or not. Leola and the Honey Bears. Look, Grandma, look, Leola sang out as she struggled to pull the biggest, wettest bedsheet from the laundry basket. Monday was always wash day, and much to her grandmother's surprise, Leola had decided to help hang out the sheets. Listen, child, just put that sheet down before you get it all full of dirt, fussed Leola's grandmother. Leola sighed. But I just want to help. I know, Sugar Pie, but I don't need any help right now, Grandma replied. You go on and play now, but don't go straying off anywhere, and don't go talking to any strangers. Then she went back to her wash. When she looked up again, Leola was merrily dancing away, headed for the nearby meadow. You hear me, Leola? Grandma shouted after her. Mind me and don't go straying off. Leola did hear her grandmother, but she paid her no mind. She didn't even answer her. Leola and her grandmother lived in a small, cozy cottage not far from the Pine Hollow wood. When Leola got her way, she could be as sweet as brown sugar. But when she didn't, she could be as stubborn as Grandma's old mule. Today, Leola could find nothing fun to do. I'm bored, she complained, and I don't care what my grandmama says. I'm going to do what I want to do. Suddenly, Leola caught sight of some milkweed seeds blowing in the breeze across the meadow. Owie! She squealed as she watched the silky pods float farther and farther from the cottage. Off she ran, chasing after them. After running for a while, Leola finally looked back. Nothing looked familiar, but Leola didn't care. She was having too much fun following the cotton-like balls. Ooh. Right into the Pine Hollow woods. Before she knew it, Leola was surrounded by prickly bushes and towering pine trees. The sunlight had all but disappeared. She turned around full circle, but she couldn't tell which way was home. Oh no, cried Leola as she stared into the darkness. I must be lost. Now, way down deep in the Pine Hollow woods stood a charming little inn. It was owned by a family known as the Honey Bears. Papa Honey Bear was Great Big Bear. Mama Honey Bear was a middle-sized bear. And little Honey Bear, just like his name, was little. Woodland folks from far and near came to visit the Honey Bears Inn. They dined on delicious daily delights like dandelion stew, double-dipped daffodil custard, and sweet daisy dough cakes. Cheerful chatter and hearty laughter always filled the inn. Come evening time, Papa Honey Bear sat in his great big oak chair and gobbled his great big toasted walnuts. Mama Honey Bear sat in her middle-sized easy chair and munched her middle-sized roasted chestnuts. And little Honey Bear sat in his little wooden chair and nibbled his little chocolate-covered pine nuts. On this particular morning, after Mama Honey Bear had served the last of her boysenberry grits to Mr. Hare and his grandbaby, Bunny, she decided to make some special treats for her own family. She baked a great big plum pie for Papa Honey Bear, and a middle-sized rose-petal cobbler for herself, and a little huckleberry tart for Lil Honey. When Papa Honey Bear and Lil Honey had finished their morning chores, they were as hungry as, well, bears. Oh, darlings, chuckled Mama Honey Bear, those pies just came out of the stove. They are much too hot now. Why don't we head over to Parson's Pond and catch a mess of catfish? By the time we get back, I'm sure all the pies will be cool enough to eat. Meanwhile, poor little Leola was still wandering around the deepest, darkest part of Pine Hollow woods. I promise always to listen to my grandma no matter how much I want to do what I want to do, Leola said. Just please let me find my way back home. Weary and confused, Leola plopped down on a damp patch of ground. Suddenly, the cool forest air filled a warm, sweet smell. I wonder if she's smelling the pies. Do you know what the word weary means? Weary means very tired. That must be Grandmama's cracklin' biscuits baking, said Leola. Now I know I can find my way. But before Leola could finish, old Mr. Weasel came out slowly slinking by. Howdy, sweet little missy, he said in his oily voice. Old Mr. Weasel gave a sly smirk as he hungrily licked his lips. Leola quickly hopped up to her feet at the sight of the stranger. Old Mr. Weasel laughed out loud. Now, child, I don't mean any to scare you. He slithered around this way and that. I'm just wanting to eat you whole. There she goes, running away. With that, Leola took off running as fast as her feet could carry her, following the sweet smell that still filled the woods. Soon she came to a large clearing. As Leola wiped the sweat from her brow, she saw a little house in the distance. That must be a stranger's house, Leola thought to herself as she looked back over her shoulder for old Mr. Weasel. I know my grandma told me about strangers, but I can't go back because old Mr. Weasel will eat me for sure. So Leola headed straight for the Honey Bear's Inn. She knocked on the heavy wooden door, but no one answered. The door was open just a little, so she poked her head in. Hello, Leola hollered. Excuse me, please. Are you folks in? Still, no one answered. I know my grandmama said never go inside folks' houses until first being politely asked, but I don't think she'd mind this time. And she quietly crept inside. Yum, look at all those delicious things that Mama Bear baked. The first thing to catch Leola's eyes were the tasty-looking treats sitting on the kitchen counter. Ooh-wee, Leola squealed. I'm so hungry. I know my grandmama said never help yourself in folks' kitchen until first being politely asked, but I don't think she'd mind this time. So Leola stuck her small finger into Papa Honeybear's great big plum pie and tasted it. Ooh, no, Leola cried as she puckered her lips. It was much too sour. Then she took a taste from Mama Honeybear's middle-sized rose-petal cobbler. Ooh, no, it was much too sweet. Finally, she tasted Little Honey's little huckleberry tart, and it was absolutely delicious. Leola gobbled it down right then and there. Oh, I'm so tired, Leola said as she let out a big yawn. I know my grandmama said never sit down in folks' houses until first being politely asked, but I don't think she'd mind this time. Leola was beginning to feel right at home. First, she sat in Papa Honeybear's great big chair, but it was much too hard. And so were his toasted walnuts. Then she sat in Mama Honeybear's middle-sized chair, but it was much too soft. And so were her roasted chestnuts. Finally, Leola sat in Lil Honeybear's little wooden chair. It felt like it was made just for her, and she loved chocolate-covered pine nuts. She ate every one. Yummy, yum, yum. Before long, Leola had stuffed herself so full of huckleberry tart and chocolate-covered pine nuts that the buttons on her dress began to pull on her tummy, began to ache, and then, kaboom! Little Honey's little wooden chair broke all to pieces. Oh my, Leola moaned. I know my grandmama said never make yourself too comfortable in folks' homes before being politely asked, but I don't think she'd mind this time. Leola dragged herself up from the floor and looked for a place to lie down. At the top of the stairs, Leola found Honeybear's bedroom, where the three neatly made beds were all in a row. First, she laid down on Papa Honeybear's great big bed, but it was much too hard. Then she lay down on Mama Honey Bear's middle-sized bed, but it was much too soft. Finally, she lay down on Little Honey's little bed, and it was just right. And without another yawn, Leola fell asleep. Here are the honey bears. See all their fish that they caught? By this time, the honey bears were on their way home, laughing and singing their favorite fishing song. Many fish are in the brook, Papa caught 'em with a hook, Mama fried 'em in a pan, baby eat 'em like a man. When Papa Honey Bear swung open the door, the honey bears could not believe their eyes. Their cozy little inn looked like a strong gust of wind had just whipped through it. Everything was upside down and inside out. Look, growled Papa Honey Bear in his great big bear voice. Somebody's been eating my plum pie. And look, cried Mama Bear in her middle-sized voice, someone's been eating my rose petal cobbler. And look, squealed Little Honey in his little honey bear voice, someone ate every bit of my huckleberry tart. Look, Papa Honey Bear growled in his great big bear voice, someone's been sitting in my chair eating my walnuts. And someone's been sitting in my chair, cried Mama Honey Bear in her middle-sized voice, and they left chestnuts all over it. And someone's helped themselves to all my chocolate-covered pine nuts and broke my chair all to pieces, squealed Little Honey in his little voice as his little brown eyes welled up with tears. Shh, Mama Honey Bear whispered. What's that strange sound? With Papa Honey Bear leading the way, they all tiptoed up the stairs. They crept past Papa Honey Bear's great big bed and around Mama Honey Bear's middle-sized bed until they reached Little Honey Bear's little bed, and they gasped at what they saw. Look, squealed Little Honey, a stranger. Startled, Leola woke up and saw 3 angry-looking bears leaning over her. Oh, please don't eat me, Leola cried. We're not going to eat you, Mama Honey Bear said. But didn't your folks teach you any manners? Yes, ma'am, Leola stammered. My grandmama always told me never go into folks' houses and never help yourselves in folks' kitchens and never, ever sit down to make yourself too comfortable until first being politely asked, but I couldn't find my way back home. And old Mr. Weasel tried to eat me, and I was so scared and hungry, I didn't think anyone would mind. Just this time. As the tears flowed down Leola's face, Mama Honey Bear saw that she was only a youngster, no different than her own little honey. And soon, all was forgiven. Mama Honey Bear took her best straw basket, stuffed it full of scrumptious treats, and covered it with one of her prettiest lace doilies. And she handed the basket to Leola. Mama Honey Bear called to Miss Blackbird, who was hovering overhead. Miss Blackbird, would you mind getting this child back home? We don't want her getting lost again. Why, surely, Mama Honey, said Miss Blackbird. But we all need to get going, child. It'll be dark soon. Mama Honey Bear gave Leola a tender goodbye bear hug. You were lucky this time, Leola, she said, but you might not be the next. Your grandmama told you right. She must love you very much. Leola had only taken a few steps down the path when she turned to wave at her new friends. Mama Honey Bear pulled up her arm around her as they all waved goodbye. As Leola neared the open meadow and she smelled fresh-washed laundry flapping in the breeze, with home in sight, she heard her grandmama calling, and this time Leola did answer back. From that day on, even when she wanted to do what she wanted to do, Leola always listened to her grandmama, and she never strayed too far from home. The end.